The war cabinet has been dissolved by Benjamin Netanyahu, and as our viewers would have seen a few minutes ago, some pretty major protests outside his home now.
Yeah, I think dissolving the war cabinet really weakens Netanyahu's position. Netanyahu is got to bear responsibility for the unpreparedness of Israel for the October 7 attack, and he is now a liability to Israel in terms of its international standing, and his government is dependent on two horrible thugs. It's not a thuggish government overall, but it's dependent on the votes of two horrible thugs. And when he had the National Unity Cabinet, the War Cabinet, you could say that this was a government for the whole of Israel. It would be much better now if Israel had elections and sorted out a new government. The problem is that Israel takes months and months and months to have an election. So Israel needs Netanyahu to move on, but there's no mechanism because he still has the numbers in the Knesset, provided he's willing to depend on these extremist ministers.
Speaking of elections, a bit of a boost in the polling for Nigel Farage right now, although Labor will win the upcoming election, Greg.
Absolutely. So Nigel Farage is not really running against Labor, he's running against the Conservatives, and he is a deadly threat to the Conservatives, a deadly, deadly threat. He could get 4 million votes and still only end up with a handful of seats, but he could wipe the Tories out. He could change their representation from 100 to 60, from 200 to 60. He could be the difference there because he will steal 90% of his votes will come from people who would otherwise vote Conservative. Now, I'm not forecasting this, but we could conceivably be witnessing one of those historic shifts where the alignment of the major parties changes. If Farage only gets a couple of seats and the Tories still win the majority of non-Labor seats, they might survive. But after the election, if he's won as many votes as they've won, you could see moves to merge. If he's got into Parliament himself, you could see him become a Conservative and take over the leadership. I mean, Farage is a very mixed grill. He's a bit of a rough diamond, but I would say with Boris Johnson, he is one of the two most consequential, historically consequential Conservatives of the last 20 years. And there are polls which put Reform now ahead of the Conservative Party, which is a staggering position for it to be. And so this is really a dynamic and unpredictable election now. You're absolutely right, Kieran. Labor's going to win, but the Conservative versus Reform contest is the real contest now, I think.
It certainly looks it, doesn't it? And momentum is only on one side of that contest. Greg, thank you. Appreciate it.